The rain poured down in heavy sheets as a disheveled man shuffled toward the gleaming glass doors of Prestige Motors, the most exclusive luxury car dealership in the city. His worn-out jacket was soaked, his shoes caked in mud, and his face hidden beneath a scruffy beard. To anyone passing by, he looked like just another homeless man, down on his luck, invisible. But James Carter was anything but invisible. In fact, he was worth over $200 million. Inside the showroom, polished sports cars glimmered under the soft glow of designer lighting. Salesman Ethan Cole leaned against a sleek Ferrari, smirking as he scrolled through his phone. He had a knack for sizing people up, and the second that bedraggled stranger stepped inside, dripping water on the pristine marble floor, Ethan's lip curled in disgust. This guy doesn't belong here, he thought. James approached the nearest car, a limited edition Lamborghini, and ran a calloused hand over its flawless paint. His eyes held a quiet intensity, but Ethan didn't notice. "Can I help you?" he sneered, not bothering to hide his contempt. James turned slowly, meeting Ethan's gaze. "I'd like to test drive this one," he said calmly, a beat of silence, then laughter, not just from Ethan, but from the other salesmen nearby. "With what money?" Ethan scoffed, crossing his arms. "You couldn't even afford the keychain." But James didn't react. He just smiled, a small, knowing smile, as if he alone held a secret too delicious to share. And that's when it happened. A single drop of rainwater slid off his sleeve and landed on the Lamborghini's hood. Ethan's face twisted in outrage. "Get out," he hissed, "before I throw you out." Little did Ethan know, that moment would cost him everything. The air in the showroom grew thick with tension as James stood his ground, unfazed by Ethan's sneering dismissal. His eyes flickered toward the Lamborghini's price tag, $455,000, before returning to the salesman's smirking face. "I asked to test drive the car," James repeated, his voice steady. "Is that a problem?" Ethan let out a derisive chuckle, gesturing to James's soaked clothes. "Look at yourself. You reek of rainwater and street grime. Do you really think we let just anyone behind the wheel of these machines?" The other salesman snickered, exchanging amused glances. Young intern named Sarah, who had been quietly organizing brochures nearby, hesitated before stepping forward. "Sir, would you like some water?" she offered, holding out a paper cup. Her voice was soft, laced with an empathy the others lacked. James accepted it with a grateful nod, but Ethan shot her a glare. "Stop wasting time on him, Sarah," he snapped. "We have real customers to attend to." Sarah flushed but didn't back down. "It's just water, Ethan." Ethan rolled his eyes and turned his attention back to James, crossing his arms. "Let me make this simple for you. Unless you've got $500,000 in that ratty jacket of yours, you're leaving. Now." James took a slow sip of water, his gaze never leaving Ethan. "And if I do?" The challenge in his tone made Ethan's smirk falter for a split second, but only for a second. "Oh, please," he scoffed. "I've seen your type before. You wander in here, waste our time, then slink out when reality hits." "Well, I'm not playing along." Snapped his fingers at a security guard lingering near the entrance. "Escort this man out. He's disrupting the business." The guard, a burly man with a bored expression, lumbered over and gripped James's arm. "Come on, pal, don't make this difficult." James didn't resist, but as he was led away, he cast one last glance at Ethan, a look that wasn't anger, wasn't humiliation, but something far more unsettling: amusement. Outside, the rain had lightened to a drizzle. The guard released James with a shrug. "No hard feelings, man, just doing my job." James adjusted his jacket, his expression unreadable. "I get it," he said, "but tell me, does Ethan always treat people like that?" The guard sighed. "Yeah, guy's got a superiority complex thicker than the car's paint jobs." James nodded, as if filing the information away. Then, with a final glance at the showroom's glittering facade, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the gray afternoon. Back inside, Ethan was already bragging to his coworkers. "Another bum thinking he's entitled to the good life," he laughed, slapping the hood of the Lamborghini. "Pathetic." Sarah watched the door close behind James, a frown creasing her brow. There had been something about him, something Ethan had missed entirely, but before she could dwell on it, the manager's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ethan, my office, now." Ethan groaned, rolling his eyes. "What now?" he muttered, stomping off. The other salesmen returned to their posts, the incident already forgot, but Sarah lingered, staring at the spot where James had stood. A strange feeling settled in her gut, like the calm before a storm. Something told her this wasn't over. And she was right. 30 minutes later, the showroom door slid open with a hushed whisper. A sleek black Rolls-Royce Phantom had pulled up to the entrance, its custom paint job gleaming under the dealership's lights like liquid obsidian. All eyes snapped toward the figure stepping out, tailored Italian shoes, a suit that cost more than most cars in the room, and an aura of quiet authority that made the air itself stiffen. It was him, the same man Ethan had thrown out. But this time, James Carter didn't look like someone who belonged on the streets. He looked like a man who owned them. Ethan, mid-laugh with a customer, froze. His stomach dropped as recognition slammed into him. The scruffy beard was gone, revealing sharp cheekbones and a clean-shaven jaw. The tattered jacket had been replaced by a wool overcoat that draped effortlessly over broad shoulders. Even the way James carried himself had transformed, every step deliberate, every glance measured. The customer beside Ethan frowned. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." James didn't even glance Ethan's way. Instead, he walked straight to the manager's office where Mr. Reynolds, a stern man in his 50s, had just stood up from his desk, his face draining of color. "Mr. Carter," Reynolds stammered, rushing forward to shake his hand. "I had no idea you were visiting today." The words slithered through the showroom, carried by the sudden silence. Ethan's blood turned to ice. Carter, as in Carter Automotive Group, the empire that owned half the luxury dealerships in the state. Sarah, clutching a clipboard near the back, sucked in a breath. She'd heard the rumors, how James Carter was known for testing his own businesses incognito, weeding out employees who relied on arrogance over integrity. Her gaze flicked to Ethan, who was now gripping a desk for support, his knuckles white. James finally turned, letting his eyes sweep the room before landing on Ethan. A slow, knowing smile curved his lips. "Ah, the salesman who assured me I couldn't afford a keychain." His voice was calm, almost pleasant, but it carried the weight of a guillotine's drop. Reynolds paled further. "Ethan," he barked, "what the hell did you do?" Ethan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The other salesmen had edged away, suddenly very interested in their shoes. James didn't wait for an answer. He strolled toward the Lamborghini, the same one Ethan had mocked him for touching, and ran a hand along its hood just as he had before. This time, no one laughed. "Funny," he mused. "I own 17 of these, and yet apparently I'm not worthy of sitting in one." Sarah couldn't help it. She stepped forward. "Sir," she said, her voice steadier than she felt, "I'm so sorry for how you were treated." James studied her, his expression unreadable. Then something in his gaze softened. "You," he said, "offered me water," a beat, "while your coworker offered me the door." The silence that followed was suffocating. Ethan finally found his voice. "Mr. Carter, I didn't recognize you if I'd known." "That's the point," James cut in, his tone razor-sharp. "You shouldn't need to know who someone is to treat them with decency." Reynolds looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. "Mr. Carter, please let me make this right." But James was already reaching into his coat pocket. He pulled out a business card and handed it to Sarah. "My personal number," he said. "Call me tomorrow. I think you'd thrive at my flagship location." Sarah's fingers trembled as she took it. Ethan made a strangled noise. And then James turned to leave, but not before pausing at the door. Without looking back, he said, "Oh, and Reynolds, clean house." The door clicked shut behind him. The showroom stayed frozen, the only sound the faint hum of the air conditioning. Then all hell broke loose. The moment James Carter disappeared through those glass doors, the showroom erupted. Mr. Reynolds' face turned a dangerous shade of crimson as he rounded on Ethan, who stood paralyzed like a man already watching his career flash before his eyes. "You arrogant little fool," Reynolds seethed, his voice trembling with barely contained rage. "Do you have any idea what you've just cost this dealership?" Ethan opened his mouth, some pathetic excuse already forming, but Reynolds didn't let him speak. "Pack your things, get out, you're done." Collective gasp rippled through the staff. Ethan's knees nearly buckled. "You can't fire me over one mistake?" he sputtered, desperation clawing at his throat. Reynolds barked out a laugh with no humor in it. "That mistake was James Carter, the man who could buy this entire block before lunch and not check his bank balance, and you called him a bum to his face." He jabbed a finger toward the exit. "Security will escort you out. And if I ever hear you've badmouthed this dealership, I'll make sure you never work in this industry again." Ethan's eyes darted around the room, searching for any hint of sympathy, but even his closest coworkers avoided his gaze. The security guard, the same one who'd removed James earlier, stepped forward with an ironic twist to his mouth. "Funny how things turn out, huh?" he muttered, gripping Ethan's elbow none too gently. As Ethan was marched past Sarah, their eyes met for one blistering second. She didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The business card in her hand said everything. Outside, the afternoon sun felt like a mockery as Ethan stood on the sidewalk, his designer tie flapping in the breeze. He fumbled for his phone, hands shaking as he pulled up his contacts. Maybe he could call in favors, beg another dealership for a job. But then his screen lit up with a breaking news alert. Video was already trending. Shaky cell phone footage of James Carter's arrival at Prestige Motors, captioned "Billionaire HUMILIATES racist salesman, watch before it's DELETED." The view count ticked upward by the thousands as Ethan watched. His stomach lurched. By sundown, the entire city would know his face. Back inside, Reynolds was pacing like a caged animal. "Listen up," he barked at the shell-shocked staff. "Effective immediately, we're implementing mandatory sensitivity training, and if I catch so much as a sideways glance at a customer who doesn't look the part, you'll be joining Ethan in the unemployment line." His gaze landed on Sarah, who was still staring at the business card in her palm. "As for you, if you take Carter up on that offer, I don't blame you. God knows this place doesn't deserve you after today." Sarah finally looked up, her mind racing. She'd only been an intern for 3 months, scraping by on coffee runs and paperwork. Now one act of basic human decency had landed her a golden ticket. But before she could process it, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. The text read, Sarah, meet me at 8 p.m. The address is 1200 Grand Avenue. Bring your resume. JC, her breath caught. Grand Avenue was where Carter Automotive's headquarters occupied an entire skyscraper. Meanwhile, across town, James sat in the back of his Rolls-Royce watching the sunset through tinted windows. His assistant cleared her throat. Sir, we've had 17 calls from reporters about the incident. Your PR team is asking how you'd like to respond. James didn't look away from the window. No comment. Let the video speak for itself. A pause. And the girl, Sarah, this time he smiled. Set up the executive training program paperwork. I have a feeling about her. As night fell, two very different scenes unfolded. In a cramped apartment, Ethan sat on his couch, surrounded by half-empty beer bottles, refreshing his LinkedIn page every 30 seconds. No new connections, no messages, just an inbox full of rejection emails from dealerships that had already seen the video. His phone buzzed, his landlord asking about next month's rent. He threw the phone across the room with a strangled yell. At the same moment, Sarah stood outside 1200 Grand Avenue, smoothing her only blazer as she gaped at the glowing Carter Automotive sign towering above her. The doorman recognized her immediately, another viral video side effect, and ushered her inside with a respectful nod. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like ascending to another world. When the doors opened, James was waiting, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. He handed her one. To new beginnings, he said simply. Sarah hesitated only a second before clinking her glass against his. Somewhere in the city, Ethan's phone screen cracked as another rejection email came through. Karma, it seemed, didn't believe in overtime. Video spread like wildfire overnight. By morning, #karma for Ethan was trending nationally. The clip of James Carter's return to the dealership viewed over 6 million times. Memes flooded social media. Ethan's stunned face photoshopped onto historical paintings, parody accounts mocking his voice, even a viral remix of his "You Can't Afford a Keychain" line set to a trap beat. His name had become shorthand for instant cosmic justice. Meanwhile, Sarah's quiet act of kindness, the simple offer of water, earned its own spotlight. News outlets called her the woman who stood up when no one else did, and interview requests piled up in her inbox. She declined them all. Some things she believed shouldn't be turned into content. Carter Automotive's headquarters, Sarah spent her first week in a daze. The executive training program was grueling, but James had been right. She thrived. On Friday, as she reviewed contracts in her new office, her own office, a familiar face appeared in the doorway. Mr. Reynolds looked older than she remembered, his suit slightly rumpled. "I came to apologize," he said, voice rough, "and to offer you a job back at Prestige, double your intern salary." Sarah set down her pen, studying him. The desperation in his eyes told her everything. Prestige was floundering. The scandal had cost them clients, reputation, everything. "I'm sorry," she said gently, "but I don't think that world deserves me anymore." Reynolds nodded like he'd expected the answer. As he turned to leave, James appeared behind him holding 2 coffees. "Reynolds," he acknowledged coolly. The older man stiffened but said nothing, brushing past him. James handed Sarah a cup. "You made the right choice." She took a sip. It was perfectly sweetened, exactly how she liked it. He'd remembered. "I have a proposition," he continued. "I'm expanding our outreach program. I want you to lead it, hiring candidates who have been overlooked because they did fit the mold. People like," he trailed off meaningfully. Sarah smiled. "Like the man who walked into Prestige looking homeless." James's grin was sharp. "Exactly." Across town, Ethan's eviction notice arrived by certified mail. His savings had evaporated faster than job prospects, and the only offer he'd gotten was from a used car lot 2 hours outside the city. Minimum wage, no commissions. That morning, as he packed his belongings into trash bags, his phone buzzed. A notification from LinkedIn. Sarah Thompson is now head of outreach at Carter Automotive Group. The accompanying photo showed her shaking hands with James in front of a New Beginnings Initiative banner. Ethan hurled the phone against the wall with a scream that rattled the empty beer bottles on the floor. 3 months later, the grand opening of Carter Automotive's flagship outreach dealership made headlines. James had chosen the location deliberately, a renovated building directly across from Prestige Motors, its gleaming glass facade a mirror image of its failing competitor. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Sarah stood beside James as he addressed the press. "This isn't just about cars," he said, his voice carrying across the crowd. "It's about second chances. About recognizing that worth isn't determined by appearances." As cameras flashed, Sarah spotted a familiar figure lurking at the back of the crowd. Ethan, unshaven and hollow-eyed, clutching a job application from a rival company. Their eyes met for a fleeting second before he turned and vanished into the crowd. At evening, as the celebration wound down, James handed Sarah a set of keys. "For the new initiative director's company car," he said. She turned them over, a silver Lamborghini key fob identical to the one Ethan had mocked James over. "Poetic, don't you think?" he mused. Sarah laughed, the sound bright in the quiet showroom. Outside, the neon lights of Prestige Motors flickered weakly against the night. Inside Carter Automotive, the future hummed with possibility. And somewhere in the city, a man who'd once judged a book by its cover sat alone in a dim apartment, staring at a rejection letter. His 17th this month, and wondering how everything had gone so wrong so fast. We've all heard the saying, don't judge a book by its cover, but how many of us actually live by it? James Carter could have walked into that dealership flashing his wealth, demanding VIP treatment. Instead, he chose to reveal something far more powerful, the truth about human nature. Ethan saw a homeless man and saw worthlessness. Sarah saw a person and offered dignity. And in the end, their own lives reflected exactly what they'd put into the world. Think about the last time someone underestimated you. The sting of their dismissal, the heat in your chest when you knew you were more than they could see. Now imagine if every person you ever brushed aside had that same fire burning inside them. The barista you ignored this morning could be a best-selling author. The delivery driver you barely glanced at might be saving for medical school. We move through life making snap judgments, but karma doesn't care about your excuses. It only cares about what you earn. Well, here's the question that matters. When someone walks into your life looking like they don't belong, what will you choose to see? The stains on their jacket or the story behind them? The next time you're tempted to look down on someone, remember Ethan's face when that Lamborghini key fob landed in Sarah's hand. Remember that every person carries invisible battles, silent dreams, and the potential to change your life, if you let them. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment below. Have you ever been misjudged because of how you looked? Or have you been the one doing the judging only to realize how wrong you were? Let's start a conversation worth having. And if this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button, because the world needs more reminders that kindness isn't just good karma, it's good business. Be kind, it costs nothing. But as Ethan learned the hard way, the opposite, that'll cost you everything.